What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for January 5th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Feel Good Friday edition of the podcast. Let's start, as always, with our question of the day recap. Yesterday, I asked if A.J. Brown's interview made you feel any different about the season, and is it the start of something bigger? And surprisingly, 2/3 of you thought that, yes, this is the start of the comeuppance. I had mentioned this being rock bottom and there's nowhere to go from up. And I don't necessarily disagree. I think it might galvanize this team. I think I wish he wouldn't have waited so long, but I think the fact that he came out and said what he said, I newfound respect for the way this team is heading. So with that being said, let's go right into the Eagles news, go a little out of order today. And of that rant, Marcus Hayes, one of my favorite columnists in the city, doubled down on it. And this clown basically is questioning now. And I don't get how. Basically, his reaction was, okay, what he said basically is throwing Nick Sirianni and the coaching staff under the bus, despite him coming out and saying, no, I support him. And I don't see this. And he said, well, if you're improvising the play, that means you don't like the play calling. And I don't think so. Like, quarterbacks have the option to audible all the time. They're the ones out on the field. They're the ones that are seeing. AJ might have saw something that he thought that he could be, whatever it was. And I think for Marcus Hayes to just double down on that, it's just a clown move. And this is all I'm going to talk about because this is what he wanted. People are talking about it. It's the big story. But a couple of things he did say, I'll actually give him some credit, and I do agree. He questioned whether or not the look he gave after the bubble screen was because of the play calling or because Devontae got hurt. And if it was because Devontae got hurt, why not say it? And to a certain extent, but I think we all felt the same way. On top of the play calling being bad on that play, the fact that Devontae got injured, I mean, that makes sense. So I'll somewhat agree. But, I mean, this clown just doubled down on everything. And then apparently he was doing a different article, and some players said that they didn't like AJ, were upset with AJ's body language, but only one agreed to be quoted anonymously. And he's questioning because AJ said, oh, well, at Ole Miss, I had journalism class. I'm a journalism guy too. And yeah, I would hesitate depending on your numbers, and you only have one guy coming out and coming as a source. To me, that's a selfish move. That's you trying to get clicks and likes or whatever you're trying to do. I mean, if one person, you have a locker room of 53 people, maybe there probably are some people that didn't like it, but to make it a story that and twist it so that AJ's the villain and AJ's tearing apart the locker room, come on, bro. Like, that's just ridiculous. And truthfully, I would give him the benefit of the doubt if he didn't have a history of incidents like this, that he makes the story about him and makes up stories and sources. And there's too many of them to name. And I know some people reach out to me like, what stories? And I know it's a kind of a cop-out thing. But, I mean, just look back, like, do a Google search. Like, there's so many incidents where he just gets a story wrong or has this far out, like, ridiculous take on something that nobody else is saying. And it's just, again, if it was anybody else but Marcus Hayes, I would give him the benefit of the doubt. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, I agree with the body language sentiment, but there was a lot of players that had dejected looks, and rightfully so. Like, I don't know. And I still, to this day, and my minority on this one, I don't feel the players owe anybody anything. They're there to play a game, to entertain us, and that's how they make their livelihood. Like, I don't have media reporters questioning every decision I make on a daily basis at my job. God only knows. Like, I've had bad body language. I've made poor decisions that maybe didn't work out right and affected the outcome of certain things for teachers or whatever. But, like, I don't have the media scrutinizing me, and I don't have, like, anonymous sources, anonymous teachers saying how bad of a job Jim's doing. So, again, I don't know how responsible it is for Marcus Hayes. And like I said, if he did not have the track record he has, I'd give him the benefit of the doubt. But I mean, I can count, probably thinking back, like, and again, the stories all run together, but I think there was one with the Phillies not that long ago, or the Sixers. Like, I remember a couple and I've been doing this podcast since September of 2022, and I can think of a couple times I've talked about Marcus Hayes on here. So that's all I'm going to do. I don't want to get into it because I'm giving him the time of the day, which is that's what he wants. So we'll just kind of leave it at that. But as always, thank you for participating in the question of the day. 267-495-8531 get you into the voice and text line. Leave a voicemail, leave a text message. Let me know your thoughts on this or any of the other stories happening in Philly sports right now. Sticking with the Eagles, though, we'll finish this out. I do like the fact, and I mean, truthfully, they shouldn't be happy with the way they've been playing. But when Nick Sirianni was reading the names for the players that made the Pro Bowl, they all were just stone-faced and just whatever. And I think, again, part of that is the fact that you've lost, 4 out of 5 or whatever ridiculous losing streak we're on right now. And the fact that, you know what, at the end of the day, it's not about the individual accolades. They had a goal and a mission to go back to the Super Bowl. So the fact they didn't look happy, I like it, I guess. I know a lot of people I saw on Twitter were making a bigger deal out of it than probably it should be. But at least they're not jumping up and down, celebrating and excited. They're keeping it where it should be, I guess. Injury report, Devontae did not practice. Jordan Davis and Darius Slay were both limited in practice, which is a good sign. And probably the best sign of the day was Zach Cunningham was a full participant in practice yesterday. That, I mean, obviously hit this downward spiral we've been on has kind of coincided with his injury. So having him back on Sunday will definitely be a big help. Avonte Maddox and Hassan Reddick were both full participants in practice as well. So it's looking like they should be relatively healthy. And if everything is the way I feel it should be after the A.J. Brown thing, I think they're going to be okay. They're going to come out. And I really do, more so than anything, this needs to be about style points, because the win in the big picture, Washington needs to beat Dallas, and then we need to win, obviously, to win the division. But big picture, we're likely in that 5 seed. And just winning doesn't really do anything, obviously, unless Washington wins. But I think this needs to be about style points on Sunday. I think they need to come out and just play a complete game that we've been calling for all year, that maybe we were right, or some of people were right, that this is just who they are. But I do have a wild theory, and definitely let me know your thoughts on this on the text line, 267-495-8531. Is that maybe all of this situation builds some toughness and galvanizes this team. There's definitely going to be some changes next year, whether or not Kelsey comes back, Lane Johnson. I know they're all getting Fletcher, BG. But maybe we all thought beginning of the season that this could be a team that takes a step back this year in order to take a step forward with the salary cap and getting the young guys some playing time. So maybe this is just a growing pain and a step that we need for maybe next year or the year after to finally go back and win another Super Bowl. I don't know, but let me know what your thoughts. It builds character, I guess. Maybe it's just wishful thinking, drinking that Kool-Aid again. But we'll have more on the Eagles as the week goes, and culminating with our pick on Sunday. Be sure to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast while you're working today, while you're working out, whatever. It's available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. The Clashing Conferences podcast. Good episode this week, leading into the double. There's only 2 games in the NFC East because the teams are playing each other. So be sure to check them out. They do a great job over there. Hopefully working on possibly being on there in the near future, so stay tuned for that, and I'll keep you posted. But the Clashing Conferences podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, I said it yesterday, I'm going to keep pushing this because I want to see what we can do. We're trying to grow this. I have some potential partnerships lined up. I have some potential things in the works coming up. But the best way to make it more attractable for more partnerships is to have a lot of subscribers, a lot of likes, get that algorithm, more plays and things like that. So I'm going to get my YouTube subscriptions up to 100 at least in the next few weeks. So if you haven't done so already, go to YouTube, like and subscribe the podcast there, subscribe to the channel. You get the video podcast delivered right to your inbox. And even if you're a loyal, devout listener on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, go to YouTube, search Jimbo_Mont, like and subscribe to the channel. That way it helps us out as we're moving forward with that algorithm. All right, so Flyers lost a horrible game. I won't even say tough one. And a lot of times I'll say, tough one when they lose to a good team. No, they had no business losing to who did he even play? Was it Columbus or Nashville last night? Either way, no business losing that game. And the fact that they did is just bad. 3-2 in a shootout. And the fact that they had a 2-0 lead makes it even more devastating. Yeah, Columbus. Not good. Travis Konecny did have a goal after it was announced that he would be making the All-Star game, but just not a good night for the Flyers at all. And I think, like I said, maybe we should have listened to Tortorella, who earlier in December, I should say, said, we don't know who we are yet, so to make a decision on whether we're buyers or sellers at the trade deadline, pump the brakes a little bit. And they're definitely going into a little bit of a slide right now. And maybe this is where they're coming back to where we thought they would be. Remember, this is supposed to be a rebuilding year, so we shouldn't be surprised at this. It's just that they played so well for so long. But they're back in action tomorrow at home against the Flames. Sixers play the Knicks tonight. Looking forward to some good Friday night basketball. I don't know what it is. I like just coming home after working all week and just watching the Sixers play and just relaxing. Won't be having a adult beverage because I'm doing dry January, which has been good for 5 days so far. But I feel good. But just come home, put the feet up, watch the Sixers play the Knicks. And it should be a good game of the Knicks because they just made some additions to that team. I think they should be at full strength. So it should be a good measuring stick for both them and the Sixers tonight. But that's at the Wells Fargo Center. Do have a little bit of Phillies news. And I keep hearing rumors like they're in the mix for this, they're in the mix for that, and nothing really came out. But I keep hearing rumors that they're not done and there should be more moves coming soon, almost like a second wave of free agency. And I'm hearing that from multiple sources. So just something to keep an eye on and monitor. But one thing, I don't know if anybody has seen this, and I didn't mention it last week when I first saw it because we had so much going on with the Eagles, but there's videos and pictures of Johan Rojas. He's been working out all offseason, I think trying to get his hitting down and everything. But did you look at his arms? Dude definitely put on like 10, 15 pounds of muscles, it looks like. He just looks jacked. Like, remember last year when he got called up, he was all skinny? And like the pictures he looks at, I'm seeing he's like jacked. And the best part about it is if you look at his shirt, he got the sleeves cut off. It's the Believe shirt from Philly Goat that all the Phillies were wearing. Be like Johan Rojas. I'm going to get one now and cut the sleeves off so maybe I can get jacked in my whole dry January gym routine. And my goal to lose 51 pounds by the end of the year. Like if wearing a Believe shirt is going to help me get jacked like Johan Rojas, I'm going to do it. Get your own Believe shirt at phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. That's phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 20% or 10%. No, can't do that. 10% off your order at phillygoat.com using the promo code Jim Montgomery. But man, Rojas looked like he. Do a Google search if you haven't seen it, man. He looked jack. And if all of a sudden he can learn how to hit, even if he can hit like 250, 260, 270 and get on base with walks and not strike out all the time, with his speed, it's going to be a good way to turn that lineup over. But be sure to go check out that video because he was jacked. All right. today, we're going to stick with the Phillies and go back to 2009. And on this day in 2009, Pat Burrell's career with the Phillies officially ended when he signed a 2-year, $16 million contract with the Tampa Bay Rays. This is going to turn into a slight Pat Burrell appreciation post. Pat Burrell was the number 1 pick out of Miami in 1998. He made the Hall of Fame for the Hurricanes. He was the Golden Spikes winner in 1998, which is the best baseball player in college baseball. He originally came out as a third baseman, but because because the Phillies had Scott Rowland, they moved him to first, and then he got called up and was able to play because Rico Brogna got hurt. Then Rico Brogna came back, and then somehow Travis Lee, or was it Travis Lee? I forget who the other first baseman was, but there was like an influx of first basemen, so they moved him to left field, and that's ultimately where he ended up staying. Played 9 years in Philly. He had a pretty up and down career. When he was hot, but then he would go into these long stretches where he would be in a slump. But he ended his Phillies career with with a 257 batting average, 250 home runs, 827 RBIs. He did win the World Series in 2008. He only had 1 hit, but it was a beaut, and it led to the game-winning run. He hit that long double that really, I thought, if it was summertime, that probably would have been a home run. If you remember, he hit the long double to deep center off the wall, and then Greg Dobbs Eric Bruntley ended up pinch running for him. Then Dobbs doubled him in. That proved to be the winning run for that 2008 World Series. He was known. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention his being well known with the ladies. I guess we'll leave it at that. Down at the Irish Pub on Walnut Street. But he did lead the championship parade on the Budweiser Clydesdale with his dog Elvis. He did go on to play another couple years with the Rays and the Giants, won another World Series in 2010, this time at the Phillies' expense. That Giants team beat the Phillies in the NLCS, and he currently just took a job this year as one of the coaches in the Giants system. But on this day, Phillies legend Pat Burrell and officially ended his career as a Philly, which we all knew the writing was on the wall, so didn't come as a shock, but he signed with the Tampa Bay Rays on this day in 2009. He is a Phillies Wall of Famer, possibly soon to be a Philadelphia Sports Hall of Famer, but on this day, it was the end of an era, the Pat the Bat era. All right, speaking of free agents, today's Philly free agent who had a fresh start when he came to Philly, going to go with the Sixers today and go with George Lynch. He was signed with the Sixers in 1999, partly because of his connection. He was from North Carolina. Larry Brown's a North Carolina guy. And he quickly became the backbone of Larry Brown's defensive teams when he was here with the Sixers, specifically that 2000-2001 team. George Lynch was not a prolific scorer, but he did all of those dirty, gritty things that don't necessarily show up on the stat sheet. He would guard sometimes the best player on the other team. Did only play 3 years in Philly, which I feel like I thought he was here a lot longer than that, but only 3 seasons in Philly. But he was reliable, didn't miss many games, averaged 9.7 rebounds. But again, he did those the hustle plays, the things that are not going to show up on the stat sheet. Easily, though, that 9 points and 7 boards were the best stretch of numbers for his career. So he excelled when he was here in Philadelphia under Larry Brown. Everybody knows that team for Allen Iverson and just being the terrific scorer he was. But those teams, especially that team that went to the finals, they had a great defense. And because their defense was so good, and this was led by George Lynch, if you remember, Allen Iverson used to take a ton of chances and always had a lot of steals. So everybody says, he drove to the lane and went to the foul line a lot. He was a small guy taking it into the big guys. But Allen Iverson scored a lot of fast break, easy layups and dunks. Maybe not dunks, but layups, because he would be able to take those chances on defense because the rest of the Sixers defense was so good, and George Lynch was the catalyst for that. He was sort of the glue of the defense of those teams and had his best stretch of years as a player here in Philadelphia. Did have that magical run to 2000 or to the finals in 2001, but kind of the unsung hero. Everybody talks Eric Snow. Everybody talks Mutombo. Everybody talks obviously Iverson, but Aaron McKee. Nobody really talks that much about George Lynch, but I feel like George Lynch was sort of the behind-the-scenes glue that really kind of held that team together and was very underrated. So today's Philly sports free agent who had a fresh start when he came to Philly was George Lynch back in 1999, help lead the Sixers to the finals in 2001. But that leads to today's question of the day. Take AI out of the equation. Go back to that 2000-2001 team. We've done a lot on them. One of my all-time favorite teams just for the way they grip the city. They've won our Lovable Loser tournament we did over the summer. Who is your favorite non-Allen Iverson player on that team? Is it George Lynch, Eric Snow, Aaron McKee, or Tyrone Hill? Kind of one of those guys that just did the things. Everybody had their role and their niche on that team, and George Lynch certainly fit the defensive. AI was the scorer, but who was your favorite 2000-2001 Sixer not named Allen Iverson? Is it Eric Snow, Aaron McKee, George Lynch, or Tyrone Hill? You can throw in Mutombo if you want. You can throw in Theo Ratliff. Let me know. Call on the text and voice line 267-495-8531. Leave a voicemail. Send a text message. Who's your favorite non-AI Sixers from that 2000-2001 team? 267-495-8531. Get you in. If you have any Pat Burrell stories, go ahead and leave them as well. I've seen him a lot of times, like I said, down at the Irish pub there on Walnut Street. But on this day in 2009, Pat Burrell's Phillies career officially ended when he signed a 2-year, $16 million contract with the Tampa Bay Rays. Let me know your thoughts on the Eagles. I'm not going to speak of the other guy that wrote the column in the Inquirer anymore, but it does look like the Eagles are going to be somewhat healthy for Sunday's game. Is this the road to redemption? Is this the road back? Is this the first step of 4 more before we go back and win the Super Bowl? Maybe that's wishful thinking. I don't know. If you haven't done so already, be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let's get those subscribers up. Again, even if you're a podcast listener, just go to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. Just hit subscribe, and you can even turn off the notifications if you're a podcast guy. But like I know I subscribe to a few podcasts that it's nice to know once they get posted, I'm able to watch and I don't miss anything. So go do that. Help me out. Let's grow this thing. Like I said, I have some potential partners lined up. Let's make this thing grow. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on the question of the day. Favorite non-AI 2000-2001 Sixers, Eric Snow, Aaron McKee, George Lynch, or Tyrone Hill, or maybe it's one of the other guys. Always was kind of fond of Pepe Sanchez because of the Temple thing, but he didn't really play much on that team. But let me know. 267-495-8531. Get you in. Go enjoy your Friday. Go get your eggs, your milk, and your bread so you can make French toast tomorrow when the snow comes. That's going to end up probably being almost all rain, although I haven't checked the weather today. But be safe out there, people. Go enjoy your Friday. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.